guys, it's Dr. Justin Berta, your favorite tattoo business doc. As always, all our contact details are popping up onto the screen. Right guys, I was in Polokwane today, so that was almost a 5-hour drive, or it was actually more than a 5-hour drive, for a CCMA hearing. And it's quite interesting, I must say. The building there in Polokwane is absolutely beautiful and very tranquil and clean and set up perfectly, and the commissioners, I must say, have come a long way. But something that I'm so glad about is how I approach HR contracts and HR policies, and how I word contracts, how I do contracts. So many people go online and they go and pull contracts offline and they think, okay, well, this contract is perfect, I don't need to pay anybody to do this. Boom, bum, done. Yeah, guys, no. Okay. I've got a lot of clients that work with mines, and they have got contractual staff that is bound to a certain project. Now, anybody that works with mines knows that those projects can change on a dime. And also, a lot of things can be added on a dime, or it can take 6 to 12 months to get approved. And in the meantime, you need staff on site, and it's got to be local staff with a mixture of your staff. If you're in Johannesburg, obviously, when it comes to management, you're more skilled staff. They won't necessarily be locals, but you have to have locals on your staff. Normally, we do that as general workers. Now, so today's CCMA hearing was based on the fact that they said they were never informed of their dismissal, or not their dismissal as such, but the end of their contract, because we issued a notice to them stating that their contract's come to an end. We gave them the necessary month's notice, everything else, plus they still got to do the exit interviews at the mine, or the exit processes at the mines, this, that, and the next thing. So, of course, you know, out of 6 people that were kind of given the same letters, 2 of them ran to the CCMA. Now, immediately as you sit down, you go through a conciliation process. So conciliation is where a commissioner or someone from the CCMA will try and conciliate between the two parties to get to some sort of conclusion. Now, normally, I've got 20 years plus experience with CCMA. Normally, they just want you to pay 1 month's salary and it's done and dusted and it kind of gets settled. 9 out of 10 times, to be very honest. But you know what? When I write a contract, my employment contract is literally nothing less than 47 pages. Guys, it's the Old Testament. All right, literally Old Testament. There's nothing in there which is that can be said as any sort of ambiguity, or there's anything that I have not explained to ignore here, because trust me, when you work with South African workers, you have to explain everything in such a manner that it is understandable, but also then legally binding. So I've got a clause in my contract that states, listen, you're employed from this point to this point. Okay, normally when you start with a contract, you know, okay, when the start time of the contract is and when it's supposed to end. And those things should be in your contract, those dates. Now, you've got to take into consideration onboarding, this, that, and next thing. So if there's a whole process your staff needs to go through before they can become contractual workers, you've got to take that into consideration. And then I always have a point where I say, okay, this is the kind of point of this fixed term contract. But next to that, I said, well, due to the market of the company and how the company do business, it might happen that you will have to work past that date, but it would be communicated to you a month before. So a month before the contract expires, we communicate to the staff and say to them, guys, this is still going to be another 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. We are unsure because, you know, they're adding and taking away, and this is changing, that is changing, and they want this added, and they need that pump moved, or this, that, and next thing. So it's an ever-evolving thing, and it's also the same if you look at how things happen in the construction industry. It's the same thing that the construction industry experience. A lot of contractual workers experience a lot of different market forces, which is not necessarily within the hands of the employer. But your contract must make provision for that. And based on one little paragraph in my employment contract, I won today's case. Right? They walked away with pretty much nothing, because the commissioner said to him, you guys knew there was a beginning and an end date to this contract. You knew this was a fixed term contract. You knew this is not a permanent employment for the next 20 years. There's a beginning to this contract and an end to this contract. And they can, at any point when you are no longer needed, terminate your employment. You know, your contract has expired. Now, what saved my ass again was also that there was an end date, and we are far past the end date. The end date was September 2025, and we notified them in April 2026 that their part of the contracts come to an end, and we would cover them up until, I think that was the 3rd of June. So they were paid everything else. So obviously they went and took a chance, because out of the 6, 4 of the 6 was already again re-employed in terms of other contracts that required very specialist people, which they have become over a period of time. But unfortunately, these 2 guys have just always remained general workers. They haven't ever wanted to be more or anything else. So we didn't need general workers on the next part of this contract. We need skilled labor. But at the end of the day, guys, every time there's a new project, you write a new contract. Make sure that your contract makes provision for the unknown. It's impossible to make provisions for every unknown thing that can happen out there. But just say market forces. Market forces is such an open term. Or say that due to the nature of the industry, right? The nature of any industry is crazy. South Africa, hold on to your panties, boys, because the next minute the petrol price goes to $30 a litre and the whole world falls apart. The logistics industry goes into a spiral because it's now so expensive to move goods, it's not even funny. So, there's a lot of things going to happen, but you can use generalized terms to cover a lot of things. Guys, be clever. Spend the additional money to get a proper contract set up by proper people, by proper HR people, no matter how big or small your company is, because you can lose terribly at the CCMA. Remember, the CCMA is not always there for the employer. But when I walked in there and they immediately heard it's Dr. Justin Burter, they knew exactly who I am, because they've seen my contracts. They know how I operate. This is the first CCMA hearing I have had in 5 years. In 5 years. None of my clients have gone to the CCMA because of my contracts and because of how I view things and how I approach things and how we settle things. When we have disciplinary hearings, I chair a lot of disciplinary hearings. And I never take a side, because it's very important as a person chairing a hearing that you don't take a side. You listen to each side and you take it on the merits of the matter. And there's been so many weird and wonderfuls over the last 2 years, especially because it's like everybody has lost the ability to have any sort of intelligence whatsoever. But it goes both ways. I mean, the employer and the employee. It just seems like everybody has parked their brains outside and is hoping for the best to happen. So guys, as we go into another spiral with the Iran-America fiasco, a person needs to even be more diligent about what your contracts say and what your company policies contain. So guys, please look at your contracts, and I'll speak to you again. Have a great evening.